I have had enough. I've had enough of being told what to think, enough of people being bullied and threatened and shut down. I've had enough of tiptoeing around the permanently offended brigade. And almost every day is seeing yet another example of people being forced to retract something and issue an apology because the social justice warriors have demanded that they do so. Whether it's a school closing down its decade-long farming project because the vegan didn't like it, tube workers removing factually historical references because some people felt offended, or brands apologising for advertising in certain publications just because some people don't like it. People are now terrified of causing offence and have been made social pariahs. The permanently offended brigade are not only trying to erase history, they are trying to erase any difference of opinion at all. We are on a slippery slope, and trust me, we need to hit the brakes as a matter of urgency.
Right, so the pig farming school. Let's see. There was a petition set up by a vegan parent.
I'm furious about this example, by the way.
So you're outraged.
Oh, I am.
So there's a vegan parent who was outraged, like Michelle's outraged at him, that the school was rearing pigs and was then going to
pigs for the slaughter.
Send the pigs to slaughter and feed the pigs to the kids. So let's just see what the petition said first before we go on. In 2018, we should be teaching children compassion towards animals. The school has made students and parents uncomfortable by discriminating against their beliefs by condemning these pigs to death. I think it should have also mentioned, and then feeding them to the kids.
Yeah.
That's an important piece of information. And then let's see what the school has responded with.
Oh, I've got steam coming out my ears, honestly.
The school said, we respect the vegan philosophy, but Priestland School is proud to serve the whole community. We shouldn't be laughing here, guys, but it's, you know, we want to educate our students about where their food comes from, and to do this in a sustainable way. Our preferred outcome for this year's cohort of pigs to enter the food chain as planned for us then to sit down and have a rational discussion about whether or not we continue to have pigs in the future. I mean, look, OK, so by the way, I'm a very loud and vocal critic of the left and how they try and witch hunt people out of positions, out of saying things they feel that they disagree with. I agree with you on all of that. I just want to be careful in one aspect, and that's it works both ways. It's a sword that cuts both ways. When L'Oreal featured a hijabi in its advert, and I criticised it because I don't agree with the hijab in principle, but a lot of the right-wing were offended, and they complained, and they were outraged, and now the hijabi has been removed from the L'Oreal campaign because she said some statements against Israel. Yeah. So the outrage is happening on both sides of the debate, and I think everyone just needs to calm down a bit, really.
But coming back to that pig story, this was pigs learned from a farm.
Yes.
So the pigs were always going to be in the food chain.
Yeah, but the kids didn't have to eat them.
Yeah, but what they're trying to do...
You're right, they didn't. They had a choice.
Yeah.
They weren't going to be forced to eat the sausages.
Well, were they going to be told? This is the pig.
This is last week.
Yeah, guys, come on.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
This is in a rural community.
Hold on, let me tell you a story, because my dad's from a rural community.
Hold on. I think we've heard enough from you. If you just for a moment...
I'm going to tell you a story about rabbits.
One moment, please. This is a rural community where very likely their granddads or their dads are possibly farmers. They raise the chickens, they take the eggs, and then they eat the chickens.
I love that.
It is the circle of life, and don't worry, I won't start singing. And it is utterly absurd. And coming back to Michelle's central point, just this week...
So you're offended?
Offended by what? Offended is too strong a word. I just think they're wrong. Yeah. I just think they're wrong.
That's
offended
great.
is too strong.
That's great, but Michelle's outraged, isn't it?
But hold on,
furious about it.
But this week, so that was, I think, last week or early part of this week. The week started with the Churchill Cafe, or Churchill, a picture of Churchill. We learnt being adored with something like imperialistic scum or what it might have been.
Yeah, that's right.
Then we progressed later this week. The film Zulu, they happened to write on Dollis Hill Tube Station.
I was offended by that.
What?
I was completely offended by that.
We
should not be celebrating colonialism.
No,
I'm not saying it didn't... That's if you look at it that way.
They weren't celebrating anything. They were just pointing out that on that day, this is what happened.
No, they were celebrating it.
They
were saying how many Victoria Crosses
for viewers
that they defeated.
Very, very briefly, and the London Underground, many places, they put a thought for the day, effectively, which is written up...
Which is meant to be an inspirational thought for a day. I don't know how that's inspirational.
Hang on, let me just explain. And for those who don't know, last week it was the anniversary, and we're seeing it now. It was the anniversary of the Battle of Rorke's Drift, which is immortalised in the film with Sir Michael Caine, Zulu, and I think my numbers are right a bit...
title in itself, anyway.
Well, guess what? It's history. 150 British troops held out against 4,000 Zulus. It was an act of heroism, not colonialism. That's what they're celebrating.
Well, why were they there? They were in the country as an act of colonialism.
Yeah, we can conduct.
So I'm sorry. Yes, it happened. Of course, it happened. But that's not something we need to be celebrating. I'm not saying don't talk about it. I'm not saying erase it from history. Of course not. But we also have to be honest about our history. Not all of our history needs to be celebrated.
Can I tell a story about eating meat? So I had rabbits when I was a kid, right? And my dad...
Is this going to be a good story?
Yeah. You've got like a hunting jacket on, actually. It's a bit like a ratting jacket.
Well, then listen to this story. So my dad, we had six rabbits, and what you're saying about rural... So my dad's like this, right? We had these 6 rabbits, and one day we're at home, and I must have been about 7 years old, and we're eating some form of meat. And I asked my mum, this is delicious, what is it? And my dad said, it's the rabbits that you were rearing,
It's bugs.
Yeah. Now, what I'm going to say is... I was traumatised, and so I've got no... I'm not a vegan.
You have survived, though.
I'm not even vegetarian. Wait, let me finish the story. I'm not vegan, and I'm not even vegetarian, and I've got no problem with this school rearing pigs and then sending them off to the slaughter. I just think it's a bit nasty that the kids that were stroking these pigs are then asked whether they want to eat them.
I think that's wrong.
So don't eat them.
I think that's fair. But, I mean, there isn't...
The school was getting...
For once, I agree...
The school was getting death threat.
No.
That's obviously crazy.
One of the changes of recent years is that the vegan movement...
No, go back. What was the sentence you said?
I think I agree with you. Because, well, just because you agree with me.
He's strong on that, didn't he?
No, but because... I mean, I've got to say, if you invite people for lunch and somebody says, I'm a vegan, I take the invitation away because it's so difficult to feed. But also, I have no objection to people saying I'm a vegan. I just object to them trying to impose it upon the rest of us.
But so this guy is, but vegans aren't generally, Greg. I mean, let's not be irresponsible.
Some aren't, some do.
Yeah, no, but they do, they're angry. So I've had a debate about this, actually. I'm not vegetarian, let alone vegan, but I do think the direction of travel is in a kinder future for meat. And I think, for example, the future will be things like biologically grown laboratory meat, where you don't slaughter animals.
Sure, but
that's how we're going to move away from it. But
if you want to
it is a cool industry, isn't it?
Sure.
It is a very... Wait, it's a very cool industry, isn't it?
What?
The meat industry.
It's a very what?
Cruel industry.
Yeah, the practices.
The practice of the meat industry.
I think we're going off topic. My point is this: if I make it about this vegan guy, listen,
because this is just one thing.
This guy did something wrong.
Yeah, so to that vegan, that guy, listen, if you don't like that, take your kid to a different school. End of story. Move your kid on. And what I'm getting so... Because it can't be that difficult.
Another school might be doing the same thing.
So he has to raise...
Well, an easier solution, if you don't like it, don't eat the pork.
No, but what I'm saying
that's an easier solution. His kids didn't have to eat the pigs, did he?
But I am sick to the back teeth of being told what is acceptable and what is not acceptable based on what people think and don't think.
But you are telling this parent what's acceptable.
But you don't have to do it.
But you're doing the same to the parent.
No, I'm telling the parent, if you want to be a vegan, my friend, be a vegan. I respect your choice. The second you start dictating what other people can do because of your belief system, I've got a problem. I've got a serious problem. And that's what I'm offended by. I don't care what people think. You can have your opinion, it can be different, but I don't care.
To be a devil's advocate,
a petition... What I do care, though, about Majid, is where people are ramming their opinions into everyone else. People are tiptoeing around, afraid to say what...
I agree with the substance of your remark.
It's happening both on the left and the right. You're saying it's only the left. It's not. It's both. It's both.
And Nick, just
give me an example.
Well, he was saying...
Well, just give you an example.
Which one?
Your rabbit?
The L'Oreal hijab.
Oh, sorry, hijab. Yes, I'm sorry.
You know people...
No, I'm sorry. But the fact that London Underground cravenly gave in...
And I'm so glad they did.
So 150 blokes could hold against 4,000 Zulus. Dollis Hill Tube Station couldn't even keep it up on the bloody wall. Come on.
Precisely.
Come on.
Can we just clarify something? And I do actually agree with your sentiment that he was being a bit aggressive or overt in his campaigning, but let's just clarify something. Technically, a petition isn't dictating to anyone what to do. It's a piece of advice, technically.
Yes, but
it's a petition. That's the meaning of the word. A petition is...
But it didn't just stop at a petition.
To listen to me.
No, but
but that wasn't him.
But surely if the petition is aimed at somebody, their job is to sit and say, is this reasonable? Is what they're saying fair and reasonable? And should we do something about it? Now, the school in this case decided it did. I happen to disagree with them. I think they should have said, look, we have done this for many years. This is explaining to people what the food chain is, and because one or two parents don't like it,
but it's not about meat and food chain. So, for example, I was looking at something the other day with Jermaine Greer, and she came out with an opinion on transgender people. So basically what Jermaine said is that if someone's had a transition from a man to a woman with gender reassignment, she didn't regard them as a woman. Now, that's her opinion, and she is entitled to that opinion. But in today's day and age, you seem not entitled to that opinion. Well, you get attacked.
Jermaine Greer is... one thing we know for sure with Jermaine Greer is she's no shrinking violet, so she definitely can stand up for herself, and she's kept to that opinion.